Synagogue, which is in the courtyard right here, which I'd encourage you to see, which is the Nevi Shalom, which means the house of peace. And the Nevi Shalom Synagogue was built in 1826. It was demolished in 1884 because it was going to be a part of this larger, grander Magen David complex. But you know, they say when you have 2 Jews in the room or 3 Jews in the room, you have 3 opinions or maybe 4. So that was the case with the building of the synagogue. And it was supposed to be a place of learning, a yeshiva, and this was supposed to be the grand synagogue. But the community, including my family, which belonged to that synagogue, were very attached to the Nevi Shalom synagogue, and they rebuilt it in 1912. So the funny thing is, the Nevi Shalom, my synagogue, the most humble of the synagogues, is the newest, but actually the oldest of the 3 synagogues. The other synagogue which we've come from, many of us have walked and I encourage the others to go to, and I will be giving you tours of both the Magen David Beit and Nevi Shalom if you would like. I'll be on premises to do that for you. The Beit El synagogue is also a beautiful synagogue. I call the Beit El the queen of the synagogues. This definitely is the king, but I'm a feminist, so of course my favorite is the Queen synagogue, which was built in 1855. 1856, and it was built by Joseph Ezra and his son Ezekiel Judah. And the reason the Beit El was built is because our Jewish community was growing rapidly. Because, as I said, we were embraced by the city. We did very well. We came as rather wealthy traders. In fact, the first Jew to come to Calcutta by a Surat in 1793 and 1799 was my ancestor. He was a court jeweler. He actually weighed the diamond from Maharaja Ranjit Singh, and he traded in all kinds of precious commodities. We also made a lot of money in opium, in indigo, and we were very predominant all over what we call Jewish Asia, which stretched from Basra all the way to Shanghai. We are called Baghdadi Jews, and my mother is definitely a Baghdadi Jew, but my father's a Syrian Jew. So what I want to say is we're called the Baghdadis because the majority were Baghdadis, but they were Jews from all over the Middle East, just like Chinese and Portuguese and Armenians who flocked to the city because it was such a mercantile, important site. And we, all of us, flourished here. We talked about Jewish building many monuments, but the Armenians were also amazing landowners in the city, and some beautiful properties have been built by the Armenian community. And this is a very sacred space. When you talk about Calcutta, it's such a special place. It's a sacred place because over here we have the Magen David synagogue. When I was coming in, the muezzin was calling from the mosque. Okay, we have the chimes and the bells of the Portuguese synagogue, Portuguese church, which is the oldest Catholic church in the city. They first built their settlement and their church in Bandel in 1599, and 1799 this church was built. And we have much later, we have the beautiful Nakoda Mosque, which is, you can see it from the rooftop of the synagogue. And on this side, we have the wonderful Chinese temples, which are also beautiful. There is the Namsun Church and the C8 Church. They call it churches, and this is in fact we call it churches because the Lal Girja looks like a church, but we'll get into that a little bit later. So I'm going to talk again about each synagogue and tell you a little about it. So this Magen David synagogue was built by Sir David Ezra. He was a business tycoon, much like the Sassoon family. In fact, there's a lot of intermarriage between the Ezras and the Soons, and they too made their money in opium, which those days was still legal. Now, when he came to the city, the typical traditional synagogue is a very simple space. It has a bima, a central place from which the prayers are said. Then there's a place where they hold the sanctuary, where we hold the Sefer Torahs, which if I don't get to speak about because I have 20 minutes, you tell me when it's over. We keep our Sefer Torahs, and Calcutta had some of the most amazing Sefer Torahs in the world. It faces Jerusalem, okay? And that's the most sacred part of the synagogue. And on that sanctuary is the Ner Tamid, the light that's supposed to never go out, which represents the light on the temple in Jerusalem. We were conservative Arab Jews. Okay, we are Arab Jews. We are not, this Muslim Jews are not fighting all the time. We've lived in each other's countries and lands, just like we have brothers who are Hindu and Christians. We really have no antagonism with the Muslim community. In fact, most of the staff and caretakers traditionally of our synagogues have been Muslims, and you can speak to them over here. We also have a Hindu member, Swarna, on our staff. So they have been caretakers of our synagogues for generations. And I think that's the beauty, the intangible aspect of our cultural heritage, that we're really a city which embraces all. And I hope that will always be the case. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about the Magen David Synagogue built by the Ezra family. This synagogue, I told you the traditional one was an ordinary space, place upstairs, for the ladies, because we came from Muslim countries, ladies upstairs, men downstairs, families mingled in family groups, and it wasn't like a very formal place. I remember my father was a very funny guy, but he always said, you can do anything you want in the synagogue, be yourself, be happy, you don't have to be on your best behavior, because you know what, it's not like the church, you're not in your father's house. You can do what you want. You can be happy in the synagogue. So we weren't very formal. We didn't have a choir. We don't have organs, none of all that stuff. Everybody and members of the community could go up to the bima and say prayers. Now, the synagogue, I said, was a place where the community met, where they did charities. We were very philanthropic. We took care of the needy in the community. Though we said that we are a rich community, 50% of the Jews were always poor, because they kept coming from the Middle East. But they never remained poor for long, because community members took care of them, and they made sure that all their needs were met. So how did they raise money for the synagogues? They raised money by auctions, okay? They would have an auction in the synagogue, where we would auction off the different rites to say the different prayers. And the more important prayers were more highly auctioned. And so the synagogue actually was able to get more and more charity. So when he came to Calcutta, Sir David Ezra, we were Arab Jews, we wore turbans, we had long dresses, but they slowly became, instead of Judo-Arabic, they became more European in their dress and their outlook. And so the synagogue also became more Western, more British, and he looked at all the grand churches around them and St. Paul's Cathedral and said, oh, maybe we can build something like that. So what's very unusual about the synagogue, if you look up through the Shamiana, you will see that there is a tall spire, okay? And it's a steeple. That's why they call it the Lal Girja. But most synagogues don't have steeples. So how did he saw the other steeples? He said, we also want to build a steeple. But how did he do it? He had to write to Baghdad, the seat of Jewish learning, to ask, do I have permission to do a steeple for a synagogue? They said, well, it's not against Jewish law. There's nothing that says you can't have a steeple. So yes, go ahead and have a steeple. So the Magen David steeple is 142 feet high. And it has a clock that was imported from London, which was 64 feet high. And at that time was the highest clock in the city. The synagogue was designed by Macintosh Burn, a British company, and designed by Ormond. It's in Renaissance style and modeled after the old Telegraph building in Office in London. When the synagogue was built, as I said, in 1884, there was no electricity in Calcutta, okay? Electricity only came to Calcutta, electricity only came in 1902, I think. And so in the center of the synagogue, there was a beautiful big chandelier before electricity, which was lit with olive oil lights, okay? But when electricity came in, Calcutta was one of the first cities in the world after London, I think, to get electricity. A benefactor of our community, E.M.D. Cohen, whose picture is in the synagogue, he bought a beautiful electrolier. And I thought, what is an electrolier? It's basically a big chandelier with 30 cut glass bulbs with electric bulbs. And that was a big deal, and was bought from the Grand Opera building in Calcutta. So we had a chandelier of cut glass from the Opera House. The floor in front of the Secretary of the Sanctuary is made and designed by a Dutch firm, with Castilian tiles. So I think what it immediately shows you is how Calcutta was very much part of a larger global cosmopolitan world, where you could get your pillars from Mirzapur, your Castilian tiles designed by a Dutchman with a British person who's probably Christian designing the synagogue, and we all, at the end of it, get a really magnificent place to pray in. Now, when we have time, I can take you into the Magen David and I can show you the synagogue and what the different things mean, different elements mean. Because it's a very beautiful synagogue. And I also want to say a little bit about the Beit El synagogue, which is the most complete synagogue out of the 3 synagogues. And I explained to the group who were there with me at the walk, it's most complete because it has the mikveh, which is the ritual bath. It has a place for making matzah, which is the unleavened bread that we eat on Passover to remember our ancestors when they were wandering in the desert and to run away with Egypt without time for the bread to be cooked and ready. And we have a wine cellar. And the matzah board was a very formal board. It had to follow specific halakhic laws, that's Jewish laws, on how the matzah was made. And the wine too, the ritual wine, which was sent to Jewish homes, we had to have a special certificate to produce that wine, was actually made in the synagogue till the 1970s by Aga Baba. And I'm an old lady now, I'm 66. But when I was young, we used to have kosher wine in our house, and beautiful matzah, which was this big round breads, which used to dip in something called halek, which is made of dates and nuts. But now we get these really packets of matzah that come from America during Passover, which tastes nothing like it used to do when we were young. So I want to say 3 cheers for the wonderful Calcutta matzah, which I haven't seen anywhere else in the world. The next thing I want to talk about briefly is at the Beit El synagogue, for those who were there. If you look across from the Beit El synagogue, that street, it's on a street called Pollock Street. Pollock Street was a very Jewish area. Lots of Jews lived there. It's the site of a wonderful novel called Flowers in the Blood, where there was a murder that took place in the Jewish community. I hope I intrigue you to go and read that book, because it's really a fun novel and it's based on a true story. But over there was also the Jewish Girls' School. The Jewish Girls' School was one of the first schools for girls in 1881. It was on Ezra Street and it was in somebody's home. And the reason the school started was because they were afraid that the girls would go to Christian schools and get converted. And Jews were very careful that we remained as Jewish as possible, and tried also that there wouldn't be too much intermarriage, but there was much more intermarriage than we would like to admit with people around us. The school then moved to Ezra Street, and from Ezra Street moved in 1929 to opposite the Beit El synagogue, where there was a beautiful Jewish school, which my mother went to, which is now, I think, a mall. And even the plaque of the Jewish Girls' School is no longer there. And in 1962, it was moved to Park Street, because I told you they became Serbs over a period of time. So from Arab Jews, we became more anglicized. And we moved from this gray area of town to the white city. And we owned a lot of buildings on Park Street and Theatre Road and Loudon Street. And as far as Mayfair, which also the Jews opened up. So that gives you a sense of the area of the Beit El synagogue. Now I'm going to... Do you have 5 more minutes? Okay, so let me tell you a little bit about the Sifrei Torah, which is important for you to know. Unfortunately, the keys to the Sifrei Torah room are not with us. We don't know where they are, but we will make sure that they are open very soon. The Sifrei Torah is the most holy part of the synagogue. The Sefer Torahs are written on parchment, okay, and they're written by scribes in Baghdad. Now, these Torah scrolls written by scribes with over 300,000 letters and about 80,000 words were written by hand. And if one mistake was made in the writing of that scroll, it was rejected. Okay, so actually even the making of the scroll was a spiritual task, and the people who wrote these scribes, special scribes, not only did it in Hebrew, but they had all kinds of mystical symbols that were written on those parchments, which is part of the sacredness of the Sefer Torah, which have become more standardized over the years. Now, the Sefer Torahs were wrapped around 2 spindles, and there's a picture of one outside. I wish you could have seen the vision, but the door was open. And these were put in a teak, or a wooden kind of a case, which was then embossed with silver, copper, jewels, okay, and weighed between 10 and 15 kilos each. They were heavy to carry, okay? And these Sefer Torah, we had over 200 Sefer Torah in those beautiful casements in Calcutta, which really shows the religiosity of the community, but also the incredible wealth, because they're very, very expensive. Most people in the world didn't have tourist clothes, they wrapped them in cloth, they didn't wrap them in silver. But we had India, the wonderful craftsmanship, the Chinese workers, the Indian workers, to make these beautiful toras. And when I went to give a talk in the synagogue in Hong Kong, they displayed pictures and real Sefer Torahs they had that were always exported to Hong Kong and other parts of Jewish Asia, okay, from Calcutta. So Calcutta was a very important site in Jewish Asia. The last thing I want to tell you, and I'll stop, is that you'll see the curtains, which are called parachet, and they all are on the sanctuary. They divide the material world from the sanctuary, the spiritual inner space of the synagogue. And during Simchat Torah, we're called people of the book, because we believe in the laws that the Lord gave down to us. We celebrate the receiving of the law, and all the Sefer Torah would be out and paraded. And I remember as a child, being absolutely mesmerized by these beautiful Sefer Torahs that were displayed, about 60, 80 in each synagogue, and the parachet would be hanging from the ladies' balcony, giving the synagogue, which is already very beautiful, a truly flamboyant look. So I think I can stop here, but I would say the conclusion is that the Jews who came to Calcutta via Surat and had their brethren from the Middle East join them, not only flourished, not only were accepted, but prospered in this city. They had a multitude of trades in which they were involved. There were sheriffs, there were judges, there were teachers. There were only 4,500 of us, but we made an incredible and indelible impression on the landscape. So I implore you to learn a little bit more of us. And for the young people there who love, Bollywood and Hollywood, there were many Jewish Bollywood stars. In fact, the first 2 women who owned Bollywood production companies were Jewish ladies from Calcutta. So 3 cheers for them. And the first was India, 1947, Pamela, was Esther Victoria Abraham from Calcutta. And the only 2 Miss Indias, 1947 and 1967, who were Miss Indias, was also from Calcutta. It was her daughter, Naki Jahan, she married a Muslim, was also from Miss India. We not only had Bollywood stars and film stars, but General Jacob, who was one of the greatest generals in the Indian Army, because we continued to flourish even after the British left. We had magicians. One of the most famous magicians in the world still today was from our community, Eddie Joseph. In Wikipedia, he's called an Englishman, but in fact he's very much a Calcutta Jew. His family came from Baghdad. And there's the Eddie Joseph ring in Bombay, the magician's circle and ring that's named after him. And then we had people like, let me just think who else I can think of immediately. Ezra Mir, who was a very, very famous film producer who produced and worked for the government of India and had over 700 films to his name. We were commercial photographers and pioneered commercial photography, and of course we were businessmen and industrialists as well. The Jews left Calcutta not because of any persecution. In 1940s, when India was becoming independent, there were the partition riots, which disturbed a lot of people. A lot of people from Calcutta who could now move to other parts of the world, not sure what a future without the British would look like. They moved to Australia, they moved to Canada, they moved to England, and also some to Israel. The majority of Calcutta Jews did not go to Israel. Life on the kibbutz and pioneering Israel was too hard for them. And the good thing is they're very attached to Calcutta. They still love their city. They come back and visit. And even though they live far away, Calcutta lives with them and all of us in our hearts. Thank you.